The investigation of the Russia collusion is, in fact, criminal now. We'll talk about also the entrapment of General Flynn. CNN thinks that it's still doing journalism. Is polyamory becoming a thing? And also grabbing oil fields in Syria. Coming up on the Buck Sexton Show. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show, everybody. Great to have you here with me today. Oh, my. Some very exciting headlines last night. The kind of thing that gets me all excited to come in and do the show. And you know that a lot of the deep state libs out there are quite unhappy about this one. Justice Department, this was the headline in the New York Times, is said to open criminal inquiry into its own Russia investigation. Oh, isn't that quite a way of putting it? This piece, by the way, is a masterclass. I mean, this is an incredibly perfect example of why people don't trust the media, of why there's an understanding that the media does have biases, pushes narratives, pushes political beliefs, that they are activists posing as journalists. The subheadline here is, the move is likely to open the Attorney General to accusations that he is trying to deliver a political victory for President Trump. Oh, other people, I guess, might make that allegation. The New York Times isn't making that allegation, of course. No. It's the other people out there that will try to undermine this investigation in its entirety, that say that this is absolutely not on the up and up, that this is a political hit job in the other direction after we've had 3 years of political hit jobs against Trump. They're going to do everything they can to undermine this. I have to say, it will be remarkable watching the biggest news outlets in the country and people who are public analysts, intellectuals, talking heads, whatever they may be, go on like a minute's notice here, from being all about how our sacred institutions and the most important components of our democracy, the DOJ, the rule of law, how dare you question the special counsel? How dare you question James Comey or Robert Mueller? These are decent public servants doing God's work for America. They will go from that to Bill Barr as a hatchet man for Trump. That this investigation by Durham, a well-respected, and remember this, because you're not going to hear it a lot from a lot of people, the U.S. Attorney for the state of Connecticut, he investigated the destruction of CIA interrogation tapes. He was appointed by Attorney General Eric Holder to do that. A lawyer's lawyer, a trusted guy, a no-nonsense guy. Just look at his goatee, and you know this guy means business. Do you think that you'll hear that description from most of the mainstream media outlets? No, what you'll hear is that there's whispers, there's perception out there. They're not trying to create the perception. They're just reporting on the perception of the New York Times, you see, that there's a perception out there that maybe this whole investigation of the conspiracy to nullify the 2016 election under the basic headline of Russia-Trump collusion, that by looking into that at all, Trump and all of his minions are undermining the rule of law. That's what you'll hear. That this time around, the process receives no deference. In fact, the process has been destroyed. The process is being weaponized. Oh, why is that? What evidence do they have for that? You're going to watch the most hated people in America right now are going to become, in terms of the media, will become Attorney General Barr and U.S. Attorney Durham. The reason for that is they have to have a scorched earth campaign against those men, and with it the Department of Justice process itself, of a criminal investigation that will look at and now have subpoena power to get records from different individuals who might be implicated in a plot to destroy the President of the United States. A plot that would have involved high-level Obama administration appointees, a plot that may, in fact, have gone all the way up to the Obama White House itself, up to and including perhaps knowledge of and the complicity of President Barack Obama himself. Those are the things that we want to find out. That's what we want to know. They can call it a conspiracy theory as much as they want. I just call it the theory of the case. And that was more than enough for them, wasn't it, when they opened up a full-field FBI investigation on the reasonably nice guy, but not even vaguely high-level or well-connected in foreign policy circles, George Papadopoulos. He heard something from a guy at a bar. He passed along that rumor to some other guy, and then there was an entire theory created about Trump working with the Russians in an act of sedition to undo the 2016 election. Stunning, isn't it? Molly Hemingway, who's been doing great work on this, had a piece that's out today at the Federalist, just looking at the fight that's coming now. What's going to happen now? They've been hoping all along. The left has been planning to subvert this whole process. And now that it looks like we might get some real answers about what happened here, who talked to whom, they're just going to go absolutely scorched earth, apoplectic. The lies, the viciousness, the denial of obvious reality, whatever the left has to do. Remember, this is not just about being right. It's not just about the need that Democrats and the left, and I guess we don't say progressive very much anymore in this country. What happened? But the left, well, maybe because it's gotten so far left that we just can't even use the progressive word. But all along this time, they've been willing to do things that were underhanded. They've been willing to bankrupt people in Trump's inner circle. They've been willing to use the law as a tool of partisan politics. We need to be prepared for them to go all in against this investigation now. Because, yes, they have an emotional need. They like to think they're right. They like to believe that Trump is the monster they've created in their minds. But there are also careers and power and money in the balance. I would like to think that at some point, for example, CNN's audience will realize that they've really been lied to by their own team, that CNN has become a laughingstock. It's a joke of an organization now, that Jeff Zucker and the so-called serious journo anchors there are partisan attack dogs for the Democrat left. That's what they've done. That's what they've become. That the New York Times here, in its headline and subheading, lets it be known exactly what it thinks of this criminal investigation into the plot to destroy Trump and to undo the 2016 election. Anyway, here's what Molly writes about what we are facing. Quote, an attempt to tear down the foundations of our republic by corrupt, unelected bureaucrats who have decided the will of voters is subordinate to their will to power. It represents a fatal threat to our system of government, and if this coup succeeds, whether through impeachment proceedings or through an election that, if the last 3 years are any indication, the other side is clearly willing to steal by hook or by crook, the nation will cease to be a constitutional, democratic republic. This isn't about Trump or Republicans or conservatives. It's about Washington needing to learn the differences, or needing to learn, rather, that political differences have to be settled at the ballot box, lest instead they be settled with an undermining of our constitutional norms and institutions. It is going to get very ugly, my friends, because there are a lot of powerful people in this process who do not want the truth to come out. A criminal inquiry into the Russia investigation origins. There's been no effort at all by Mueller, for example, really Weissman, because Weissman was running the Mueller probe, to find out how did this whole thing get started. We always begin as though we're 15 minutes into the movie. Well, this guy said this thing to somebody at a bar, and everybody knew that there was this Russia-Trump collusion theory out there, and so it seemed plausible. Really, where did that theory come from? Who came up with that? Who wrote reports suggesting that? Who used the power of the government to create some smokescreen for activities related to that? I just want to know. Wouldn't we all want to know? But any questioning of the special counsel was doing Putin's bidding. Any questioning of the investigation that ruined people, that sent people to prison, that gave felony convictions for process crimes that never would have been committed had not Weissman and his team of Democrat hatchet men had near unlimited power and resources to just create this retribution campaign against Trump under the guise of the special counsel. And now we are supposed to just act like none of that happened and believe the lib media, believe the allies of the Democrat Party and the socialist left in America, which is what we should probably start calling it. It doesn't matter what, if they change words all the time, why can't we start to use words that are more accurate? Democratic Party is now a socialist party. And say, oh, that's not true. No, it is true. But if they're allowed to do all this looking into things just to get the facts, and they schemed and maneuvered to do it in the Department of Justice that technically works for the president, they turned the DOJ against the president for whom they work. And now, after sitting through that, after suffering through that, there is some hope that perhaps we'll get answers and we'll find out what really happened. And the Democrats are unsurprisingly apoplectic about it. There are careers, there's money, there's power in the balance. So nothing should be beyond the scope of our imaginations for where this is going to go. Some very ugly, very disreputable, disgraceful conduct from the media, from the Democratic Party, from Schiff, from Liu, from Pelosi, from Schumer. Go down the list. They will have, for those of us who believe in facts and truth and justice, a lot to answer for. Of course, their constituents, many people who are so brainwashed in anti-Trumpism, it doesn't matter what we find. They will never care. They really do believe, while they've been talking all along about how much we have to respect the sacred institutions of our democracy, they really believe that anything to defeat Trump is acceptable. The only way that you can gauge if it's okay or not is it harmful to Trump? And is it helpful to the left? If the answers to those questions are yes, doesn't matter who you trample, what you destroy, what you have to break to get there. This Justice Department inquiry, now a criminal inquiry, which is funny, it's a criminal investigation is what this is. They are investigating. Be very precise when you look at the words, when you see how they describe all of this. This could lead to catastrophe for the Democrats in 2020, and they must know that. They have a very weak field as it is. What happens to Joe Biden if we find out that the Obama administration did, in fact, try to destroy the Trump campaign? What happens if we find out that the so-called insurance policy, in case Trump gets elected, was something that was known in high-level policy circles in the Obama White House? How does that look for Joe Biden? How does that look for the Democratic Party? And I think we are very possibly going to find out information of that gravity. I can't tell you what it is yet because we haven't seen the findings. But the FISA abuse report is complete and will be out soon. That was reported last night. And let me give you a summary version of how that's going to go. The FISA abuse that the Comey FBI and that the Department of Justice under Loretta Lynch engaged in against Trump associates and who knows who else was jaw-dropping. It was explicitly political. It was the worst kind of abuse of power. This was third world dictatorship stuff using the intelligence service against a democratic political challenge to the political establishment as well as the party in power. I used to work at the CIA, man. If we had seen this in another country, we'd say, man, that is as dirty as it gets. You're using the intelligence service to try and take down and finish off your political opponent during an election. If that happened in some other country, people would say that, oh, that's right, it was a coup. And that's what we'll find out from this investigation that's underway now, and who knows how far it will go. The investigation of the investigators. We will find out that this was in fact, the Obama administration's pro-Hillary, anti-Trump, soft coup effort. That is my prediction for where this is going, and I tend to be right.
Folks, you hear the news. Once again, Putin and the Russians are trying to engage in our elections and decide who the president's going to be. And this time I'm the object of their attention. Because Putin knows if I am president of the United States, his days of tyranny and trying to intimidate the United States and those in Eastern Europe are over. I'm going to stand up to him. He's a bully, just like the president. And I know he doesn't want me to be president, but to tell you what, when I'm president, things are going to change. Mr. Putin, the American people decide their elections, not you.
What is any of this based on? This is now Joe Biden. That was just from this past week, saying that Putin is trying to pick Trump again. More Russian meddling in the election. This has become a hysteria that Democrats know they can use for the purposes of getting voter turnout. This is insane. What exactly is it? Because there's some Russian troll farm still operating somewhere? Russian Facebook bots? If it were that easy to turn an election, why wouldn't people be doing this from all over the world all the time? It's not that easy to turn an election. And where's the evidence for what Biden's talking about? Even better question, perhaps. Biden saying that Putin's tyranny will be over when Biden's in office? I mean, it's just a stupid thing to say, but Joe Biden's not a very smart man. And yet he's the Democrat frontrunner by far, still. What does that tell you about this field? They're scared. They don't want to actually have anybody who has to line up against Trump because they're worried that Trump will crush whoever that contender may be. And they're still hoping that Joe Biden will turn into something that he's not. An inspiring politician for whom, or who is able to express to people a real reason to vote for him. I was Obama's VP is not enough. That's what they're finding out. But this Russia stuff, this is just delusional at this point. But I know people who still believe it. I know people that anything that you say about Russian interference in our election, the blood drains out of their face and they get terrified. And, oh, my gosh, our democracy. It really is a hysteria. I mean, this is people who haven't been able to put this into the proper context at all. Instead, they're constantly terrified of something that's not happening or going to happen. It's all going to be okay, libs. Putin is not hiding under your bed. Speaking of delusional, my friends, Hillary Clinton. She's back! I just do the Hillary voice now to wake up any of you that aren't really paying close attention. You're like, oh, Buck's voice is so melodic and mellow. And Hillary comes back. Oh, what's going on? And all of a sudden, even for producer Mark over here, it gives him a little bit of a jolt. He's like, right? Sometimes. He's busy at work over there. He keeps the trains running in the Freedom Hut, running on time. And I'm the guy who's always trying to ride between the train cars, which you're not supposed to do, and take selfies and video myself like, woo! See, this is why we're a good team. He makes sure the trains actually go, though. So we appreciate that. As to Hillary, why am I talking about her other than I just wanted to just do a Hillary squawk? I'm back! It's because we've learned more about Hillary in the last few weeks than I think we have in a long time. For one thing, this Hillary Unleashed, or whatever they're calling it, when she feels free to say what's really on her mind is fascinating because she's kind of crazy. They propped her up as, oh my gosh, she's a technocrat. She's so smart, has this incredible resume. And it was really kind of all handed to her, wasn't it? There's nothing of real substance. What was her big accomplishment as Secretary of State, by the way? You ever think about that? What did she manage to do? Nothing. Managed to fly all over the world and do a lot of press junkets for her forthcoming presidential campaign. Womp, womp. But she didn't win. So sad. I'm so sad. And then Hillary, before that was a senator. We know that's because her husband was president for 8 years. She was willing to be a person who would just attack any of the accusers of her husband. I also love if you go back and see her in some of those interviews where she starts to do like a Southern accent, and you're like, Hillary, your Southern accent is terrible. She did it though. She's from Chicago, and she would do this kind of, yes, I'm not Tammy Faye, whatever. I'm not just gonna stand by my man. If you look back, there's some clips circulating right now of Hillary back in the day, just shameless. She gave this speech. I remember it was at a. I'm not even do the Hillary impression of the speech she gave, if memory serves, at a predominantly Black Baptist church. But she's just a shameless panderer, has no ethical, moral, or even really ideological core. It's just whatever works at any point in time, whatever helps in her relentless pursuit of power. And then that brings me to her latest explanation when she was asked recently why she lost, and I think this was on the Obama Bros podcast or whatever it is, where they're all like, yeah, like we were all like really like young and cool in the Obama administration, and now we do a podcast where we curse a lot and like whatever, man, like totally. Like I know a lot of libs listen to that stuff. I do not know why, but they do. But this is real. So Pluff, him from Democrat circles, asked Hillary Clinton what she thought the Trump campaign strategy may be. She said its strategy would consist of two parts. My friends, this is going forward. This is now for 2020. I'm not talking about the 2016 election. This is going forward. Dark web videos and propping up of a third-party candidate. The former Secretary of State, now she goes back to her loss, attributed her loss in part to voters seeing flashing videos of her on the dark web doing horrible things. Quote, I think it's going to be the same as 2016, Clinton said. Don't vote for the other guy. You don't like me. Don't vote for the other guy because the other guy is going to do X, Y, and Z, or the other guy did such terrible things. I'm going to show you in these flashing videos that appear and then disappear, and they're on the dark web and nobody can find them, but you're going to see them and you're going to see that person doing these horrible things. The dark web? Hillary thinks that there was essentially the secret internet was conspiring against her and that's what changed. Maybe she should have just campaigned in Wisconsin. Maybe she should have been a warmer, more compelling human being running for public office instead of an entitled, grasping grifter. People figured this stuff out. At least enough people did. So why do we treat this like this is serious? This is a serious discussion from a person who knows what's going on. She blames the dark web for her loss. I think we should all be rather astounded that isn't getting roundly mocked and ridiculed. How many of you have even been on the dark web? How many of you could even find the dark web? But here we are. Anything to make Hillary's ego a little bit less bruised in this whole process. By the way, I was mentioning before about where we think where Biden is right now, and this is where the money situation. I think that the money situation is showing us that Biden is not long for the front runner status. Producer Mark, would you just play? Biden gave quite a resounding, a full-throated defense of his political poverty right now. Play 19.
Do you still consider yourself the front runner?
I know I'm the front runner. Find me a national poll with a couple exceptions, the last four that have come out. But look, this is a marathon.
Yes.
This is a marathon.
You can look at the last campaign finance filing. We looked at that. You have less than $9 million in the bank. Bernie Sanders has nearly $34 million in the bank. Senator Warren has $26 million. How do you compete against that?
I just flat beat them. We're on course to do extremely well. I'm not worried about being able to fund this campaign. I really am not, truly.
I love the way that Biden starts out. He's like, find me one poll. Find me one poll where, except for like the last, a bunch of recent ones, but forget about that. It's like, oh, well, don't start with, find me one poll. Okay, other than those five. That's a classic Biden moment. I've always felt that Biden is really a case study and how effective the media is for covering up for people that they like. Because he was a buffoon during the Obama administration. Said stupid things, made bad decisions, didn't know what the heck was going on a lot of the time. But it was always, oh, Joe Biden, he's so cute. He's like that lovable grandpa we all have who just sometimes forgets that his key's around his neck. Nope. They wouldn't do that for Republicans. No, a Republican says one bad thing and the person's supposed to be ruined for all eternity. Oh, and Representative, this is just one more since we're on the political side of things. Representative Ilhan Omar has endorsed Bernie Sanders. Play 9.
I believe that Senator Bernie Sanders has complete fluency in the struggles of working people. He has been someone who has fought alongside and for marginalized people in this country for many years. And I believe that he and I share value and a vision for the America that we all deserve, and will do everything that we can to build the movement that will get us there.
Bernie Sanders has been fighting for marginalized people, huh? Up in Vermont? Is the senator from Vermont? I'd like a little bit of proof other than the most obvious Marxist class warfare stuff, which Bernie Sanders, that is really the core of who he is, even though he's a millionaire with 3 houses. He wants to make sure everybody pays more in taxes, the millionaires and the billionaires. They're not doing their part. It's not right. People in this country know that you have to pay more in taxes or else the capitalists will eat your children. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to say some crazy Bernie stuff. He does say some really insane things on a pretty regular basis. Oh, and then we don't have any audio of this, but Elizabeth Warren, oh gosh, gee golly, she's found a way that they're going to pay for the multi-trillion-dollar Medicare for All program. They're going to find a way. She's been working on it a long time. Well, I'm glad she finally figured out she has to actually have a plan, not just be like, I'm going to give everybody free health care. I think they're rolling that out maybe today, how they're going to pay for it. Here's a hint. The numbers will be wrong, and it'll make it seem like it's all going to come from rich people, and that's just not true. I already knew that without seeing the plan. How am I such a genius? Because these people are all very predictable. They don't learn from the past. They don't learn from reality. They don't learn from economics. They just think that whatever promises they can make to people that inspires a feeling of, ooh, that sounds good. That's all they have to do, including Bernie. My friends, we have to talk a bit about the General Flynn situation. I know we were discussing investigating the investigators at the top of the show, but I can't skip over that. It's important. Big report out today up on foxnews.com. Brooks Singman is the writer on this one. FBI agents manipulated Flynn file as Clapper allegedly urged kill shot. This is according to a court filing. Let me give you some of the details, and then we will together dive into the significance of this because, my friends, it is quite significant. An explosive new court filing from Michael Flynn's legal team alleges that FBI agents manipulated official records of the former National Security Advisor's 2017 interview that led him to being charged with lying to investigators. It's Flynn's lawyer's latest attempt to get the case thrown out. Sidney Powell, Flynn's attorney, filed a 37-page motion on Thursday outlining several big allegations, once again requesting the government produce all evidence as it relates to Flynn, urging the court to dismiss the entire prosecution for outrageous government misconduct and to hold the prosecutors in contempt. There's a lot of big stuff alleged in here. The kind of things you wouldn't want to put in writing and present before a court of law unless you had something to support them. And the belief here, the short version of it, and you have to look at the timeline, and there's all this information that you have to piece together. But the short version of what seems to have happened is that Strzok, oh, that's right, the same guy who's texting his lover about the insurance policy in Andy McCabe's office in case Trump wins, who hates Trump, who says Trump voters smell, that guy. FBI is a big place, tens of thousands of employees. FBI is not a small organization. Oh. And meanwhile, the FBI has one guy who seems to be at the nexus of so much of the anti-Trump stuff that went on. Isn't that a bit curious? It's almost like it's not a coincidence. Maybe this guy really was trying to use his power as a senior counterintelligence agent for the FBI to do damage to the Trump campaign because he thought Trump was a clear and present danger to this country. The allegation here is that after the conversation, which we've talked about many times, where Ambassador Flynn was approached, while he's the incoming national security advisor, folks, he's approached by some FBI agents who, and now we have some information about how there was all this discussion back in FBI headquarters. How do they approach Flynn so that he doesn't really know what's going on, and they can basically jam him up? That's what they used to say at the NYPD. They could get him. This was a get Flynn operation. They already had the transcript of the phone call. They knew exactly what was said on the phone call. Important point here, by the way. There was no crime. There was nothing illegal. To say it's a Logan Act violation is, folks, and you have to remember this. Libs are shameless, especially when they're talking about the law. This is why they'll find some vague way to interpret any statute. They'll broaden it out. Oh, well, the president should go to prison because of honest services fraud, because he's not giving the American people the honest services of his effort. Instead, he's trying to build his own personal brand as president. And that's an idiotic legal theory, but it's not too stupid for libs. The Logan Act? Remember, that was the pretext. They were going to use a law that has been around for over 200 years that not a single person has ever gone to prison for. And that was the pretext for going after a national security advisor, Sally Yates. Oh, that's right, who wouldn't actually do her job as acting attorney general because she hates Trump so much, because she didn't like that the president of the United States does, in fact, have the legal authority to prevent certain classes of aliens from coming into this country if the president determines it's in the national interest. So her legal analysis was wrong, and she did the whole hashtag resistance, I'm the acting attorney general, but I'm going to pretend like I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. She was involved in this process. I mean, you look at the individuals who were in on this, and it is an anti-Trump cabal. But back to the Strzok and the 302. Remember, 302 is FBI speak for the memorandum of the conversation that was made. And I will tell you this, in an age when everyone's carrying around phones and all this stuff, it should be considered, I believe it should be considered, and this is, people are going to get mad at me maybe in the Bureau for saying, I don't care. You either record a conversation or it's all just, it doesn't count, all right? You either record it or not. This, I'm going to unless they're taking a stenographer, notes in real time, you don't get to have a conversation with somebody and then afterwards be like, yeah, I did it. This is the Comey maneuver. And I did a write-up of it where I look like the hero of my own drama. James Comey, in my own notes, I always seem like the one honest man here. It's like I'm in a, Shonda Rhimes show. What's that one? The thing about where they all, not your favorite, Mark, Grey's Anatomy. What's the one with all the DC stuff going on? You know what I mean? Scandal.
Yes.
Yeah, like James Comey's the one honest guy in the middle of Scandal.
I do not watch that one.
You do watch that one?
Do not.
I don't know. Mrs. Producer Mark may decide that's going to
I don't think she watches it either. She does love Law and Order SVU, though.
I know. I've met some other ladies who love that show, and I never
all
understand.
Females like that show, I think.
I don't understand why that show is so appealing. But anyway, so here's the allegation about Strzok. That he may have changed, actually altered, this is what's in this court filing, changed the 302 after some news broke about Flynn. So there's news stories out there, and they're like, oh, we got to get him now. So they would have changed the information so they could criminally charge him. All in an effort to flip him on Trump because they believed that there was this Russia collusion thing that Flynn knew about and must have been involved in. So they were supposed to flip Flynn. The problem with flipping Flynn is he didn't know anything. He didn't do anything. And Trump didn't do anything. But this was a grotesque abuse of power. Absolutely horrific. And they ruined a good man, General Michael Flynn.